So, yeah, so I've lost my train of thought right when I hit record, of course. Anyway, so when I first proposed test wizardry, I thought of doing it in, 4 general categories. One, um, kind of the core development, the Java development, which is what I did first, and introducing TestNG and how to do test automation from a very basic perspective. But the first 2-week course was just core Java development skills, object-oriented programming, string manipulation, the basics. And we did essentially, I don't know if you've seen those videos, essentially the same thing we've accomplished through the web, but through a console interface, asking their name, age, determining whether they're accepted to Hogwarts or not. And then the next one we're doing now is, the web development, learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, how those can work together just purely for front-end web development. The next set of the course I want to do is UI test automation. So using Selenium WebDriver to automate our tests. I thought we'd be a little further along in our development now so that we'd have more to test, but we've got enough, I think, to exercise, some test automation, which is my primary skill. And then the fourth set of classes will be around continuous delivery and leveraging cloud test environments. So to deploy to AWS, to have configuration management, and to use Docker containers for development and to be able to deploy that way.
That's nice.
So you said you're particularly interested in the AWS aspect of
Yeah,
it?
right. I'm interested in the next also. Like I have
Okay.
knowledge in Selenium, but yeah, I would love to attend those also.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I think we'll do next. And I'm not sure if this is going to be the last. Since it's just me and you live, then I suppose we can continue. It's been pretty low pressure, except when I feel like I'm not making any progress, and you're watching on the other end as I stumble through and try and debug my mistakes. But then what I'd like to do is get more of the web application up for our Selenium testing, but it's okay, I think, to go ahead and develop them in tandem. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. If I had a better structure in place, then I could say, okay, we're going to learn how to develop our app. At the same time, we're going to learn how to test it and then deploy it. And I introduced a little bit the quick deployment on Netlify to be able to
Yeah, right.
deploy the static site, and there's ways that you can incorporate their serverless architecture with that as well. But there's nothing to stop you from going from one to the other, right? Netlify is a free hosting service, but they also have some cool tools that do automatic deploys from GitHub, and that's what I like about it. But let's go ahead and get started for today. What we want to do is get the other pages going. And I also discovered yesterday, as I was debugging, something about local storage, that we have to store everything as a string in local storage, which is something I didn't realize because I'd never tried it before. So there's something we'll need to explore. Anyway,
Sure.
because if you remember, at first we had the fields for name, age, and so forth. We were saving those all independently in cookies, and then we moved them all to local storage, and then finally into session storage. But then in local storage, I'm trying to save an object that contains all these things, just so easier access. We can get the one element. And just through my research yesterday, or through my discovery yesterday, I'm like, wait a minute, why is this coming back null? I've got everything together, it's saving, but it doesn't handle that. So what we can do for now is serialize and deserialize, but I think I'll explore other methods. So let's go ahead and fire up our browser and our live server.
Would you mind, like, if I post your YouTube tutorials on my LinkedIn and I can, I share it across with other people also so that they can watch and benefit from this?
Sure. And what I'm hoping is that after I go through this first rough iteration, that I'll be able to polish it. And one thing I am not, and that's a video editor. And just having someone to go through and edit my videos, to delete my long pauses and and then to have them especially go through when I get on the wrong track, like I did a couple times in the past week, where I'm trying to develop something and I'm just going in circles trying to debug something and it's not useful. I imagine for someone watching a replay, that's particularly painful, but of course they can skip ahead. But having someone who can edit my videos to take out those parts that aren't relevant, I think would help that. And so then my idea is that once I have this course outline that I'm just kind of stumbling through right now, that once I've got a clear picture of what it looks like, then I can go ahead and re-record it and make it something that'll be more valuable for those listening along. Anyway, so we've got our app up. Let's bring it up in mobile view. Number one, for mobile perspective, we're trying to keep it displayed within a mobile viewport, but also so that it looks nice in a wider viewport. And then the nice thing about developing mobile first, from my perspective, is here we've got our Chrome DevTools console up. So we've got this. Let's first make sure everything works. All right, so we go mail 11 wizard. It's all going. It's saving to session storage. We'll go here and check our application, look at our session storage. We've got all of these things. Good. We go through and change them. We change that to 12. His age changes to 12. And we reload the page and it's still there. If we clear our session storage, it's still here. And if we tried to apply, we're going to get an issue. It says your owl flutters off, and we get a response. Sorry, you're not accepted, because everything was null. And also because of our response here. So I'm going to clear the session storage. And we go back to our start and we go to our apply page and it's not there anymore, right? So we'll put Hermione in. All right, we've got all things. We still haven't submitted our application, but we're going to artificially go back to the start, click on apply now, and it repopulates our application because, as you remember from yesterday, we got this character data that we're putting in session storage, and we're getting it on DOM content loaded. So whenever the page reloads, it will look in the session store and it will repopulate these fields. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, got an echo. So the one thing that I haven't got for this is to go through. We click send application. Owl flutters off. And congratulations, you've been accepted. You can see here we've got the Hogwarts response is an object that goes in here. And all right, so it's actually not there. Although, if we look at it, we'll go back to our application, and rather than doing our redirect here, right, we're going to remove our redirect here, just so we can illustrate what happens. Let's go ahead and we will clear our session storage. Clear our local storage, and I'll illustrate what happens when we go back to the start. All right, so he's a 12-year-old wizard. We send our application, owl flutters off, and then we see our console. In our console, we save the player character to local storage. Now this doesn't work because it saves as an object in local storage, and it can't retrieve objects. It can only handle strings. So all we get is object, which yesterday I should have realized. Well, I had some suspicion because I'm like, wait a minute, we can't inspect this in Chrome DevTools. That seems like an odd limitation. And the limitation is that you can only store strings in local storage, that or session storage. That's why you can't inspect them. All right, back to our console. So here's what we do is we send the person to the, so we get the person object from the form. We send it to the application, or to the Hogwarts admissions, which is a function in, this is something I developed after you were gone yesterday. I want to just open that. So we've got another module called Hogwarts, right? And the admissions function takes your person and it builds a response object. It says if a person's not a person object, because JavaScript is loosely typed, we need to check this. We return invalid application. If the person is magical, or if the person is not magical, I should say, so if magical not equals true, we reject their application, put accepted to false, and we give them a reason. You must be a wizard to attend. And then if their age is not equal to 11, we again reject their application and we give them a reason. You must be 11 years old to enroll in Hogwarts. And then if none of these conditions fail, then we accept them to Hogwarts and we return the response. And then lastly, our module exports the admissions function, just like our person module exports the person class. All right, so that's what's going on behind the scenes in Hogwarts admissions, right? So here we are using the asynchronous import function to get our Hogwarts module. And then here we just have some output that shows we've right here, we've got the module. And then we get Hogwarts admissions. This is the function within the module. And it shows here F for function admissions, and it actually includes the code in the function object partially in the console. And then we've got our response object, which we call here, response equals Hogwarts admissions. We pass the player in, and then we log our response and save to session storage, which because it's an object, it doesn't save. So we have here our response object, and it says, sorry, you were not accepted. If we run this again, here, let's clear this so we can see it. We changed his age to 11, so he'll be accepted. And then we get the same thing. We now, since we didn't change anything, we just see that we sent the application, save the player character to local storage. That doesn't work, but we get our Hogwarts module. Inside our Hogwarts module, we have our admissions function. And then when we call our admissions functions, we get the response that has accepted true. The applicant is the person and the reason is undefined. We don't need a reason for being rejected. And then we print the message, congratulations, you've been accepted. So what we do after that is we redirect. The only problem here is that we don't have our information in local storage. So there's a couple of things we can do about that. We can use Json.Stringify. And this is a function that converts it to JSON, to JavaScript object notation. So let's let's just create well, let's not even create a file. Let's go into our Node console. So from the command line, I'm in Node.js, right? And I can console.log, a couple extra L's there, and we print hello. All right. So what I want to do is I want to create a person, right? Actually, let's so let's import our person class. And you know what? What would be nice is if our class and our module weren't the same. Const person equals require. I'm just going to do it old school way. Dot slash scripts, or I think we need to go to public, right? Yeah, public scripts. There we go. Test wizardry person.js. So we've got our oh, okay. So we've got to do it the old way, or I mean the new way, because we're doing our export the old way. All right, const person. Wait, we want to do import person, wizard, witch, and muggle. We'll import them all from person. Cannot use import statement outside of a module. Okay. I guess we in the console here we've got to do it using the import function. So we'll do const person equals import equals await import. All right, it doesn't want to work in our console. That's kind of annoying. I think I can get around that with this. So what I'm doing is I'm calling an anonymous function. All right, I need to look at this. All right, there's the syntax we need. I was close. And then we close it. So we're creating this anonymous function, and then we're calling it. All right. We'll cook this some way or another. But, all right, public scripts test wizardry person.js. And then we need to close our wrapper, and then we need to execute it. Oh, man. because I declared it and made a mistake. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply kill my Node.js session and start a new one. So I can cut and paste that, and not supported. Oh man. What if we try and do it the other way? Then I can't have it both ways. Cut and paste error. All right, then let me equals module dot new module dot person. What is the order? Age. I'm 11. I'm male. And I'm magical. Something's not working here. Feel like it's rejecting my creation. Okay, we're not going to work in the Node console. Forget about that. Now I actually forget what I was trying to do. I was trying to demonstrate serialize. So we'll do Json Stringify. Do we have our player character object? Okay, well, let me equals new wizard, new person. That's not going to work either. We're running into the same catch-22. All right. That's not going to work. All right, I'm going to just create a standard object, right? Let person equals my D key is sticking. Nope. Magical is true. All right, so we've got a person object here. It looks roughly like a person object. What I want to do is I want to do local storage dot set item, and I'm going to give it a name, person. Now, if I go to my application tag, you can see it's here, but I can't inspect it. So I go back to my console. Get item. And that returns the string object. So That we can return the first character is, or the first character after the bracket, right? The very first character is, of course, the bracket. So that's all it's saving, is it's saving object as a string because it's giving the type. What I want to do instead is I want to save this as JSON. And this is not the way I'm going to do it long term. What I want to do is I want to, if I can only save a string, well, then I need to serialize it. And JSON, for JavaScript Object Notation Stringify, will do that for me. So it actually creates a string that represents my JavaScript. And this is how I would pass it back and forth over the network. So using local storage or using a server to store it, I'm going to pass it in this same format. So this is pretty handy as a midway step. So what I can then do is then I can do local storage set item, and then I'll do json.stringify person. And there we go. And now when I go to my application and local storage, I have person, and I have, this looks like an object, but it's really a string that, but it translates back into an object very easy. That's the purpose of JSON, JavaScript object notation. So this player character, we can clear that, and I can run this again. So we go back in here to our application tag. We see that it's saved as a string. And now we go back to our console, and I can say, let me equal a local storage dot get item person. So person is the key. It's the name. It can be whatever I want to call it. I could call it Fred or Aaron or whatever, and returns undefined. There's no value. But now me is this string, right? And I can return from 1 to 10, and it's going to return these first few characters. That doesn't even look like 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, 10 characters. Or, well, 9 characters, because the last one is the limit. So I can return 40 characters. That's going to get us up through gender, etc. So it's a string. How do I get this back? Well, now I can do json.parse, which is exactly the opposite of stringify. It takes a string and it turns it back into an object. So I do json parse me, and then myself is actually the object. And I can say myself dot name or dot magical is true, and myself dot name is Aaron, etc. So that's how we're going to do it for now. Using JSON to store our objects in local storage. And the reason we're going to do this is, number one, expedience. There is another way to do this with web storage, that instead of using local storage and session storage. But the other part of the expedience is that, well, if we're going to be sending this data over the network, we're going to be using JSON as the serialized format anyway. So we can reuse all of our steps for serializing and deserializing characters or whatever other data, the same as if we're using local storage, if we're using a REST API. So let's find local storage set item. We've got Json Stringify player character. And I think I typed that in and just never ran it. And then the same thing with where, let's find our session storage. Here, set item. All right, so for our other ones, those are okay. Oh, our Hogwarts response. So we'll just do json.stringify. And then we'll call this application. Well, no, that's not the application, that's the response. Oh, I've already got the heading there. Get my parentheses in place, okay. Set item, okay. We got 1, 2. Here it's okay because we're saving strings. And then 3. All right, so now we'll go through this process again. And then we'll get to Diagon Alley. So let's go to our application. Let's clear local storage. Let's clear session storage. And let's start over. All right, apply. Ron Weasley, male, aged 11, is a wizard. We've got all this here. We look at our local storage. We look at our session storage. Our character information is in session storage. We send our application and we get a Hogwarts response. And it has this string, applicant name, and it actually gives us a nice way to inspect our JSON by expanding that. And in our local storage, we now have our player character, which is the same. So you can see our Hogwarts response includes several things. Number one, it includes our applicant, which is a person object, right? They have a name, age, gender. They have an inventory function, magical and true. Magical is true, and so forth. They also have these other items. Oh, it has accepted is true, and it does not have a reason, which is somewhat curious. But anyway, so that the whole point of that is that now when we go to our next page, we redirect, we'll send this application again. Owl flutters off, and now we go to the congratulations page, and we can get the information. Remember, we did this originally with cookies, dear Mr., Miss, surname, etc. Now that we have this information in our local storage, we can populate it. So we go to accepted.html, and what we want to do is we want to check that we have, okay, so we have our Hogwarts response, we have our applicant, so we want to I don't know why we're putting that twice there. Let's reload this. Okay, Hogwarts response. We've got our applicant and we've got accepted as true. So maybe that's what I was trying to do, as I was saying. Verify that it says true. And it's returning undefined. So that must be where I left off. That we've got our Hogwarts response object from our session storage. And let's see, we've got our player character. I guess what we need to do is Json.parse our response. Then I'm going to do Hogwarts response equals. So I'm just going to override it with Json.parse. And you can see there's a pattern of Json Stringify and Json Parse that we're using. We're having to set a name for get item and set item. So this looks like we could have an object that retrieves or a function that sets and retrieves data into our session or local storage. And in fact, there are libraries that do just that. So we've got that there, and then let's be consistent here. So we're overriding our existing object, or we're overriding the JSON string and parsing it into an object. And we'll show that here. All right. Okay, and then we reloaded. So now we're getting the Hogwarts response. The accepted is true. That's good. We're getting the player character, which is also the applicant. It's actually the same data, but we're saving it separately. And so we've got our player character. Now what we want to do is we want to take the applicant name, and replace the surname. So we want to replace span ID, a salutation. So what we do is let's return and we don't actually need to get the player character separately now. And then we can use another function. I'm trying to figure out how we want to trigger this. I think rather than doing it as a separate function right now and returning it and putting the cart before the horse, well, actually, let's do that. Rather than calling get player info directly, we'll have our we'll fill our letter. So create an async function, fill Hogwarts letter. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to let response equals get player info, or let's change this to get Hogwarts response. Let's just change this to update template. So then we get a Hogwarts response. And then what we want to do is we want to find the salutation. So document query string. This will get the element. It happens to be by ID. Query selector, not query string. Query string something else, part of a URL. Query selector, an ID starts with a pound or a hash sign. It's called salutation. And then what we want to do is we want to salutation inner HTML. We're going to replace that Mr. Miss brackets with response dot applicant dot now I need to look at my person object. What is it? Is it just get last name? Or no, probably get salutation. So we can actually, and because it is a getter function, we can then just do dot salutation. Pretty clear there. Let's go ahead and save that and see what happens. And then we need to reload our page because it's on. Okay. Can I get property salutation of undefined? Okay, that's because, okay, we don't have our person object. We just have a generic object that matches that. Aha. This is why I wanted to save the person object, is because it has the logic in it for getting the salutation and getting the status, wizard or muggle. Let's think about that for a minute. So we don't want to just stringify that. I suppose what we can do is we can have a function get person from JSON, and this could hang off of the person object, right? So what we can do is we can const person equals await import get person from JSON. So we can actually eliminate all of that. We'll put that in so it's strictly not getting it from a JSON. It's getting it from an object that looks like a person. OBJ. My keyboard is just breaking up. All right, response.applicant. And we need this to be async. Function person, okay, and then we can do we're passing in the object. Now this is very brittle. So maybe what we want to do is move all of our deserialization and serialization into our object so we can control it. Okay, so we're getting the response applicant and we've got our person. So let's see what happens when we run this. All right, so we've got a response. Can't get the property name of undefined from person object. So let's add some more debugging. Object is undefined. Let response equals get Hogwarts response. We're getting our response. Well, I've got to fix the typos too. Applicant is there. Okay. We return Hogwarts response. Let's start. Oh, it's just called response in this case, just to simplify it. Is it not serialized still? No, it's a promise. Oh, we need to just await. Get Hogwarts response. Okay, so now we're back in business. All right, so our get Hogwarts response is working. And then what we need to do next is we need to await this function as well. Creating person from object, so we've got our person object there. Or rather, we've got our generic object, name, age, gender, magical. Oh wait, we've got our person. Right? No, person is not a constructor. Oh, because it's yeah, that's coming back to bite me. I sensory factor. New person dot person. Oh, we're not returning it. Come on, that's your responsibility to catch those silly mistakes. All right, so we've got it. Okay, we've got our person and dear undefined. Okay, so let's see. Let's think about it. We get our response. We get our person object. We get our query selector. Okay. And here we go. Because we've got that here, we just want a person.salutation. Say that, dear Mr. Surname. Well, the next thing we need to do is let surname, document query selector, surname. Hopefully I've got this, surname. And then surname.innerHTML. I'm replacing the content inside this tag, the bracket surname, with the value person dot last name. So, I got a typo. Dear Mr. Weasley. All right. I finally got it. So we're at the point where we were a week and a half ago with cookies. So we can see that JavaScript we're going through a lot of extra hoops to have an object-oriented format, right? If we just had the keys and values in local storage, this whole actually the whole past 2 weeks probably when we've been trying to object orientify our JavaScript, would have just disappeared if we hadn't tried to do things in an object-oriented way. So the question is, should we avoid object orientation, right? We could just have a bunch of string variables and do those. Just store a whole bunch of strings in our local storage or in cookies or a session storage or however. But what we've got to do is we're creating these objects and then we're having trouble importing and exporting these objects. I mean, I'm having trouble importing and exporting them because I'm trying to learn the right way of doing it. And we can see I've got some patterns that are kind of ugly. My person object is in a module that has a bunch of other things, a bunch of classes. So it's called person.person. So one thing to learn there is it's best to have a module and export functions directly. Definitely not have the same name, like Hogwarts application or Hogwarts acceptance, whatever that function is. And what we might do is we might have a library, a generalized library that imports our person object. The other thing to consider is that, well, this is JavaScript, and JavaScript is a loosely typed language. So maybe we shouldn't be trying to enforce all these things, that a person has a gender, and a gender is either the string male or the string female. If we just play fast and loose with our data and then make sure not to make any mistakes, that we can then just handle it, right? If we were just passing around the data and confident in that, then it would go very quickly. We don't worry about deserializing and serializing things to store them. We don't worry about checking for valid data if this is a person object, if a person object has a gender that is either male or female, that it has magical set to true, and so forth, including things like getting the first and last name. We could have just stored first and last name in their own variables rather than creating this additional function to parse the first name and parse the last name by breaking it up. So there's some things to consider for simplification. I'm actually of the opinion that in the long term, going in an object-oriented way will save us time. Perhaps not on a person, right? This is a fairly simple object, but I wanted to use simple objects to illustrate complex problems. Things like parsing the name, having the gender be valid or invalid. But the serializing and deserializing from a string to JSON and then injecting that JSON into the object are really challenges. So for instance, what we could do to make it cleaner, and this will be the last thing I'll try, is in our person object, what I want to do is I want to create a couple of methods. And what I want to do is I want to call store. So I'm creating a function called store. And then what I want to do is say, we'll have a method, right? And if our method, right, if method equals local, we're going to save it to local storage. If the method is session storage, actually, let's do this. Switch method case local, we will save to local storage. Case session, save to session storage. And does JavaScript require great JavaScript switch? I think it requires a break statement or a return, right? Yeah. Different languages. And then we can also implement other things like we might have an API. Maybe we'll just call it server. Default should probably be session. All right, so now what we want to do is let JSON equals json.stringify this person object. Oh, that shouldn't be in the switch statement. Now here's, okay, I guess what we need is we need a key and a method. So then what we'll do is let's specify our method is session by default. And then what we'll do is we'll do session storage dot set item key, and then the JSON here. And then we'll do the same thing for local storage. And it's identical. And for the server, that would be something like we would, request dot post and then our item to our endpoint. All right, so that's our switch statement, and then we'll do something similar for our retrieve. Now, first thing we do is let well, let's be more explicit. And then what we want to do is get item. Actually, well, all we need here is let JSON equal undefined. Then this is get item. And we don't pass the JSON, we return it. And then we take from here our get person from object. And we don't need to actually import person in the person class. And we can just return it. Return new person. Let object equals JSON parse JSON. Actually, we can just here. We'll follow that pattern. Actually, no, let's go ahead and that's less duplication. And then we can throw our console logging here. Okay, so now we've got a person object and we can retrieve or save the person directly here. Let's try that. Let's see, I need my person import. So we've got our await import person. Person. Make sure our import is working. And then what we want to do is we want to do person dot retrieve. Right, we've got player character. So we can actually remove all of that. Remove that. Okay, so we get our person module. We get our person object from our person module. We check to make sure that we've got the class person. And then we call person retrieve, which we just wrote. And it's going to retrieve from session storage. Okay, so we need to specify local storage. And then And let's throw a check in here. So that's a lot cleaner. Let's give it a try. Let's go ahead and clear everything out. Clear our session storage, clear our local storage, and start at the beginning. Let's apply. Harry, male, 11, wizard, acceptance. It didn't work. Congratulations, you've been accepted. Person.retrieve. Okay, so we got person class is not a function. I'm baffled now. Oh, just a typo.
And the retrieve method.
What? Did I do another typo?
No, that's it.
Person.retrieve is not a function. Accepted line 17. Retrieve is here. Oh, you know what I've got to do is I've got to do new person. So what I need is I need a way to invoke it without creating a new person. So so what I can do for now, in the interest of time, is I can do new person, because this is the class, right? I don't have an instance of my class until I invoke a new person. There we go. So what it's doing is it's doing new person with no, so everything's empty at first, but then I call retrieve and it fetches it from local storage. Here we go. Dear Mr. Potter, we've got it. Okay, that's a good note to end on for the day. We did not get to Diagon Alley at all. So would it be of interest to you to start a little earlier in the day?
Yeah, that will be perfectly fine. I can do that.
Okay, so so it starts at 10:30 at night for you now, right?
Yes, that's right.
Let's go ahead and try and continue a half an hour. Well, I've already got the invite out. Let's keep the time so that nothing's going to change time-wise, but let's go ahead and try and continue next week. I can't promise that we're going to get through it or that we're going to keep it up all week, but I'd like to try and continue next week now that we finally got some momentum and we've gotten past the intro, right? Now that we finally have the storage and the object-oriented and the modules worked out, it should be fairly straightforward to implement Diagon Alley and get to Hogwarts and go through the sorting hat. And then we'll have the challenge of creating fun adventures. But anyway, thanks, Divya, for joining in and anyone who's listening online later. And we'll go ahead and continue our class for one more week. I think I'd probably need to send out an updated invite, at least for my own self. But yeah, let's go ahead and plan on meeting Monday, same time.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Aaron. Take care.
Take care. Bye.